Hey, I'm Mitch.
And I'm Greg, and this is Sidenote.
A podcast where every episode we tell stories about and then debate a controversial topic.
And then we research and splice in all the mind-blowing shiznit throughout so you are entertained while simultaneously learning. Today we are going to be talking about Ellen DeGeneres because she has been in the news lately in sort of a controversial way. We're going to start with the stories about her and what she means to us as a public figure, and then we're going to debate sort of where she stands right now in the zeitgeist of culture. Today's Side Notes will be presented by me, Craig, and Rachel.
Hey friends, let's get into it.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. 2019.
2019, it's a day on the calendar. The world did not end. Okay.
Are you excited for this new year, Greg?
Always, but actually we're like 7 days in and I'm like, why isn't it like in my face amazing yet? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, yeah. I have a lot of optimism for this year. I'm excited. I think the podcast is going to be great. I'm excited for
the glow
this year.
up.
The glow up. And I just feel generally optimistic about things.
Every morning I wake up and I'm still tired and I'm like, why? You know what I mean? I'm like,
why hasn't my body figured out how to just...
Yeah, my froggy body. But I'm like, yeah, like actually I'm like, my New Year's resolution is to like do more. Why am I still tired? So I'm skeptical of 2019, TBH.
Okay, but you're giving it a chance, right?
I'm giving it a chance.
Oh, what did we learn this week?
Okay, so what I learned this week, don't even start.
2019. All right.
Okay, so is my tagline, okay? It's just my, what's that word?
Put it on a shirt. Put it on a shirt.
Put it on a shirt. Okay, so actually, they'll sell out. So I'm reading this book called How to Change Your Mind. Don't come for me, science people. It's the biggest book of last year.
Yeah, like you're actually a little behind on the times.
Even 2017, now that I think about it. But it's by Michael Pollan, who's a writer who I love. He writes for The New Yorker. He's an amazing science writer, such a good science communicator. And it's all about how like psilocybin and essentially like acid and shrooms were sort of like taken away from science research and are now coming back in a new way. So I'm only at the beginning of it. But what I learned this week... Mitch is like looking at me because I'm like, how is this book not just making everyone want to do acid?
It probably is. I haven't read it, by the way, but
I need to keep reading it. But honestly, I'm just like, how do I get acid? Like, I want to do it. But if you are doing acid, okay, and if you are hallucinating, if you're on a high enough amount of psilocybin, that's from shrooms or essentially on a hallucinogenic drug, and you come to, say, a staircase or a door or anything that is like maybe going to give some fear in you, like that needs to be opened. Like if you're on this adventure and there's something you need to do, always do it. So when you're hallucinating, they found that like essentially if you ever come to a door, the way you'll start to have a panic or a bad trip is
that a common thing? Like when people come to doorways, they're afraid what's behind it or something?
Exactly. Like in your brain and the way that like it all works when you're hallucinating, there will always be these like decisions that need to be made. And in order to have like an effective trip, and a lot of the time they're doing it with like a psychologist or someone who's leading them.
Studied.
You always open the door, you always follow through, even though there might be fear there, because if you don't, it's like that sort of like limbo that makes people start to freak out. They're like, oh my God, I'm stuck like this or whatever. So follow your trip.
I'm not sure I fully understand. You just mean like they found when people were stoned, if they open the door,
not stoned, they're hallucinating.
Sorry, hallucinating. I didn't mean stoned. When they're hallucinating and they open the doorways or they pass the barrier to
is when they start to like really have prolific moments and whatever. And whenever people have bad like moments, it's when they're not like they're literally like getting caught up and like being too afraid to like move forward,
and that cripples them like beyond their hallucination, or just in that moment they can't get past it necessarily. Like you have to.
Yeah, they start to panic. Maybe they start to think about death. Maybe they start to think about like all these things. It's just like a weird consistency that stuck out for me as I was reading it. That was just like, if I'm ever in this situation.
Okay, and that's like a beautiful parallel to probably real life too. You know, when you have doors, real or metaphorical, and you have fear. Just go through them. Otherwise, you'll be paralyzed in limbo.
Exactly. And honestly, there's a part of the beginning of the book where he's like, everyone who's 40 should do acid in order to like set their life up for like the like latter half of their lives. Like, I don't even know how this book was like legally made, but anyways, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to finish the book.
I'm scared of acid. Don't people have like flashbacks? Okay, that's something we
literally a myth. Anyways, continue.
Oh, I didn't think that was a myth. Okay. Mine is also from a book, hashtag the end of the year, hashtag we read so many books so we could like hit our quota of books we wanted to read in the year. But this book I read was called Flow. It was actually recommended by somebody who's a podcast listener, so thank you. I won't get too much into what the book is about other than it helps you figure out those moments when you're just like How do you find the moments when you're kind of in your bliss and doing the things you love, and what is the psychology behind getting to the point? But one thing it talked about was the physical limitations of our consciousness expressed in terms of bits, as in like computer data.
Oh, I thought you meant like comedy bits.
No, expressed in terms of like data, so like zeros and ones. So they found out in studies that your brain can only manage 7 bits of information at once. And it takes 1/18th of a second to switch between sets of information. And so as a result, you can process 126 bits a second, which equals 185 billion bits in your lifetime.
I'm confused.
So basically, it quantifies down to that's around 23 gigs. So your brain is able to process 23 gigs of information in your life, and it's just a way to contextualize how you really need to focus on the things you want to focus on.
I know, is 23 gigs like a good computer?
I know. No, it's like actually not that. It's actually not that much.
It's like a MacBook Pro?
This book's like kind of old, and I'm like, I need to like think about like what this actually means, and I need to like look at the update of like if this information is correct. I just like read it in this one book, but no, 23 gigs, like most computers have
is
like
my
1,000
phone
gigs now.
Oh no, 64 gigs is like an iPad. I'm not even an iPad.
Like
I'm the cheapest iPad.
So, but thinking about your mind in terms of like there is a limited capacity physically, just based on how much you can think and look and consume at once.
But can store, because I can think things and then
storing
they're
is different. Yeah, storing is different. This is literally the amount that your brain can focus on in your lifetime.
In my lifetime, I'm
And
dumb.
So it's
Are
not
we all
about being
dumb?
dumb. It's about making sure you focus that energy into things you actually like and want to do. That was
Okay.
just kind of the message of it. It's like, hey, know it's limited,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
why waste it?
Which you've been on a lot recently, which has been really good.
Stop like doing the stuff
focus.
you don't like and just really kind of rearrange
or
your
stop
life.
doing so much. I feel like I try to do
Or stop
so
doing
much,
so
and then
much.
it's
True.
just like
You can't
I've
do it
spread
all.
myself thin, and then I'm in the shower crying,
do
and
it
it's
all.
like, oh yeah, I have two. I don't. I'm a really bad iPad. I need to chill out.
If you've ever listened to the song Vienna by Billy Joel, it's the message of life it's one of my favorite songs. It's just like, hey, slow down. You can't accomplish everything you want in your life. It's great to have goals, but also
slow down, there, little child. Right?
But I love this song so much. Yeah. Anyway, that's what
I thought
learned.
that song was about traveling to Vienna.
No, see, it's a metaphor for wanting to do so much when you're young, and then you have to realize that like, you can't accomplish everything, and just be okay with where you are.
Listen up, YouTubers.
Vienna waits for you. It's like slow down. It's
slow down, YouTubers.
Vienna is a metaphor for all the things you want. I think that's
why
my
Vienna.
interpretation.
Okay, wow, different podcast. Weird.
Story time.
Story time. Story time. Story time.
Today's episode is about Ellen, and we shouldn't need to say her last name, DeGeneres. We're not talking about Ellen Page
Whoa,
here.
is she one of the people in the world that has
Like Cher?
like Madonna, like Jesus?
She is,
oh,
right?
Jesus has a last name.
Ellen is like
Never
a
mind.
veranda.
Yeah.
Oh, Ellen. We're talking about this in lieu of some recent controversial things around Ellen DeGeneres, which we're really going to get to.
Yeah, that'll
in
be
our
the debate.
But in this story time, I think we need to talk about Ellen because as a couple of gays, as members of the LGBTQ2S umbrella, she means a lot to us. And I think it's like she's just like a very interesting figure in our lives. And I think we like coming to think about Ellen, just even before starting this podcast, I'm like, we have a lot of stories about her because she is meaningful. I don't know if you want to go first talking about your experience with like her coming on the airwaves.
Of course, yeah. So when I was younger, I used to did you watch the Ellen show?
Obsessed.
Yeah, I would come home. Was it on every day? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
every day,
just
4
every day after
p.m.
school. I remember,
but also like in the morning too, but we were at school. She was a sick
was
day
it just
watch.
like syndicated at like all different
Yeah,
times?
like 11 a.m.
But I just remember coming home and watching it with my mom. So like what I'm gonna talk about is not so much like a story so much as like my experience with like being gay, because Ellen was on before I came out. I didn't ever watch her original show, so I never really saw the repercussion of her coming out on that show. I only ever knew about her from her talk show.
From her hit talk show.
Yeah, hit, and kind of knew the story that like she kind of lost her career because of coming out, but then like it was so beautiful and exciting to me that she was having an amazing career because of her new talk show, and like her being gay didn't seem to be a barrier at all. And so I don't know, I feel like in some ways it was exciting. It provided a lot of hope for me, but I also think back on how it sometimes provided a lot of false hope. And I don't know if it's because of the way the media is. I don't know if it's because she's a woman. Like even in my
Wait, what do you mean false hope?
So I feel like in my circle of my life, like I would watch Ellen with my mom all the time, and it never ever came up as a problem that Ellen was gay. I don't even know if it ever was brought up in a negative light at all, even though she would talk about it on her show.
But you were worried that maybe it would be an issue for your mom.
Yeah, and so it wasn't actually that. So these signs all pointed me to thinking like, oh, like being gay is totally fine. And I remember have like gay aunts.
Ellen's gay, she's dancing, we're all dancing.
And like we're all watching this show and love it and
that's the
aren't even
impact
talking
that
about
she
it.
had.
Yeah. And I remember having like gay aunts as well, but it was kind of a secret to me. Like I guess it was never really talked about openly.
Yeah, which is important. To have gay aunts is one thing, but to have gay aunts where your parents say
exactly.
we love and accept
I
them
honestly
is different.
for like most of my life just thought they were close friends. Like it took me way too long
which is the sad part about being gay, where like there's that weird time you bring people to your like family thing. You're like, it's my close friend.
Yeah,
it's like,
here's
when have
my
I
best friend,
ever
Greg.
brought a friend to like Thanksgiving? That's effing weird.
Like I remember starting to bring you to my family's place. But back to Ellen, like I feel, because then I came out and my family now is like totally okay with it. But when I first came out, it was such a conversation around like, like they were so shocked and it was like, you can't be promiscuous. It's so dangerous. All these conversations.
It immediately is about sex. I say that a lot. I'm like, what people don't realize is when you come out to your parents, it's awful because also it's like, it's the sex talk.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, your parents start going, wait, so like, how do you know? You're like, oh, I hooked up with girls and like fingered them and didn't like it as much. It's like, these are not conversations I don't want to have with my parents.
Right.
And then they go, well, how do you know? And you're like, well, because I've been like making out with Matt.
Like
and then they're
hooking
like,
up.
you're going to, be safe because it's dangerous. And you're just like, you never talked to me like this when I was straight.
Yeah.
It's
And
just
so like, I just was thinking about this recently about how, Ellen, as an example, provided like a really safe, happy, friendly, go-lucky environment for people to see a gay woman in that didn't really exist for gay men in the same way, so far as I remember. It might have existed in other places or
but
for
it
other
didn't
people.
for you, anecdotally, for your mom. Like you were never.
And
you weren't a Will and Grace family.
I think like her and my family's and people around me image of gay men was so much different. Than it was for like lesbians, and that's in my own personal experience. And
because I don't necessarily think.
No, not that it would be
true.
easier for like a lesbian to come out, but for me, I started to think about like I really wish there could have been like a male version of that, and not that there's anything wrong also with being a sexualized male or a sexualized female, but that was like Ellen played a big role in kind of like showing that you can be different types of gay people.
Like she was showing you.
It
At
didn't
4
even-
p.m., coming home from school with your like Catholic family, that they were all loving this queer woman.
Yeah.
And just like thinking.
And she wasn't only
was
defined by
making-
her queerness.
Yeah. And it was making you feel really good, but there was just like that disconnect because of her like accepted gender.
I think so, and I think that
It's fair.
what I started this by saying it almost was like an illusion for me because I saw so much love and acceptance around Ellen. I was just like in my mind so confident there'd be no issues when I came out, and I also convinced myself. I was like, look, my family has 4 siblings. They're gonna be so fucking lucky to have a gay one. Like it's really sad if one's not gay. Like they've
actually,
got
it's like
3
what's
straight
wrong
ones.
with you? And like.
I really
no
had-
offense, but the straight ones are definitely the messed up ones. You know what I mean?
I really had like convinced myself it would be so fine, and I think all these little elements added up to my own disconnect with my family and where they're at, and with society.
Yeah, like I feel like when like that would have been a smart thing to just like come out and then be like, but Ellen. You know what I mean? Just
you
be like,
said Ellen was
be like,
okay.
okay, mom and dad, before you freak out, let's just think about Ellen right now. But it's like, yeah, you're right. They might be like, she's a woman. It's different.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
And they might not have consciously thought that. They might have just in their minds subconsciously their image
when you
of
go,
a gay
Mom
woman
and Dad, Elton
a gay
John.
man. Yeah. Right. And I think now it's maybe a bit different. Like I think Modern
It's
Family
so
had a big
different.
impact on that. Like seeing
This is all white gays. There's so many. There's so many things outside that. Like Love Simon, white gays. Moonlight. My
That's
parents are
true.
like, Moonlight. I always think of my parents like, Greg, Moonlight was the most prolific movie I've ever seen. And then I was like, okay, I went and saw it. And there's like that jerk off scene on the sand. And he rubs the semen in the sand. I was like, oh, and hi. Like,
Yeah, you're
wow.
like, was that your
okay.
favorite
But there's so much more to be seen now in the media.
Yeah, times have changed for sure. And Ellen was a huge part of that, and I thank for that. But it was also like a weird coming to terms for me as a gay man.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that was vulnerable. That was open. And I'm looking at you in the eyes and I'm saying thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been over 20 years since the famous Puppy episode of Ellen's sitcom aired, in which she came out.
I think I've realized that I'm gay.
This was a historical moment, and it impacted the entertainment industry and the media, and it was a great example of why representation does matter. If we start just with anecdotes, people expressed after this episode about how it saved their lives and gave people the courage to actually come out. As well, it also opened the door for other programs to come out after that were centered around the queer experience. For example, Will and Grace, Queer as Folk, and The L Word. But there's also some science here as well. When it comes to science, researchers have been studying the significance that news and entertainment media have over the public's perception, with several studies suggesting that they teach the public about other societal groups, whether they be other ethnicities, women, or LGBTQ people, or even the elderly. Research also shows that to people within these minority groups, media can influence not only how others view them, but also how they view themselves. This was evident from a 2012 study that looked at how representation impacted children's self-esteem. So in a survey of almost 400 Black and white boys and girls, researchers found that the only demographic that didn't experience lower self-esteem after watching TV was white boys, due to how each of them felt that they were depicted on screen, which you can imagine was in a more positive light. A more uplifting study also explored something known as the Scully effect. Researchers found that Gillian Anderson's X-Files character had a significant effect on female viewers, as women who regularly watched X-Files were more likely to major in a STEM field in college and work in a STEM profession than women who did not watch X-Files. Nearly 2/3 of women familiar with Scully's character credited her actually for the increasing interest they had in STEM fields. So it's clear that representation in media can have a massive influence on society, but we still have a lot of work to do to make sure we are doing the right thing. A 2017 GLAAD, that's G-L-A-A-D, report revealed that a mere 5% of characters on scripted primetime television shows were LGBTQ identifying. So while we do have Ellen, and we do have a lot of new types of characters coming up, things are, in fact, improving. It's important that we continue to hold the news and entertainment industry accountable because, as we've said again, science shows that representation matters.
That felt so great, and it felt so loud.
My stories are so meaningless in comparison. Well, other than the fact that, like, our family was such a Rosie O'Donnell family, and I'm not comparing this because they're both white lesbian women. I'm comparing this because they both had the 4 p.m. slot, okay, as talk show hosts.
Mm-hmm. Were they ever on at the same time?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, it was like in succession.
Like it was like
one end.
It was Rosie then
there
Oprah.
There couldn't possibly be 2 gay women on TV at
yeah,
once.
It was Rosie then Oprah, and then it was Ellen then Oprah. And those were like really important 2 hours of my life from 4 to 6. You know what I mean? Like I was obsessed. So I loved Ellen because it was like when Rosie was gone, I was like, what do I do with myself? And it was kind of like a similar type thing. So loved Ellen, not as much as Rosie. We're doing a separate episode about Rosie O'Donnell because I can go off. I can tell you everything. She dictated the mood of my family. Like if she was in a bad mood, my dad would come home and be like, why are you on a bad mood? We'd be like, well, Rosie's really upset about the NRA right now, and that's a big deal.
I know you're not a full Rosie fan because you didn't love Survivor, and she did, and I did.
I did love Survivor. That's why our family gave the A-OK to watch Survivor the first 2 seasons, which you didn't even watch live. Which you didn't even watch live. She gave Colby a car. She gave Colby a car when he didn't win.
I did watch season 2 live, but not 1. Okay, what's your story, Greg?
Well, honestly, this will be quick because I don't really have that many stories when I was thinking about it. One interesting thing is just like a tidbit, and that I was shopping recently for bed sheets, and I was like going through like the Bay or whatever in Canada. That's our version of what? Target? Anyways,
not Target.
Oh, come on.
It's just a giant department store, but like kind of nice.
I
don't know.
Going through and I was like, oh, this bedding's nice. This bedding's nice. I'm like, oh my gosh, this bedding is the nicest. Who's the designer? It was Ellen.
No.
Yeah, I'm like, so that's like when I started.
Ellen designed.
It was like
sheets.
It's literally a photo of Ellen. It was really expensive.
She's
it was
on the bed sheet.
Like yeah, like there's a photo of her face. I'm like, okay, do you design?
You mean like on the packaging?
Like
or
on the packaging, but
on the bed.
Yeah, no. Well, you know how like not like a life-size cardboard cutout, but you know when they're like, this could be you, but we're playing. Oh my god, it's not the meme thing. But it was like a photo of Ellen. Like she was fully taking. I'm like, you didn't design this bed.
You aren't explaining to me what I'm asking. Was Ellen on the packaging, or was she literally embroidered into the sheets?
Okay, she was not embroidered into the sheets. I thought that was obvious because I obviously would have bought that. No, she was. It was like the Ellen font, and it was like expensive. It was like beside Ralph Lauren, and it was a little bit one of those moments where it was like, Ellen, chill. You know what I mean? I'm like, really? Do you need to make bed sheets?
You have enough money.
Yeah, I just was one of those like things where I clocked it. And I actually think I was like, I don't know if I want Ellen bed sheets.
I'd be into that if it was all leading up to like one of her comedy moments where she's like, "You're all gay because you all sleep in my sheets."
Okay, that'd be really cool, but I just don't
All
think
for a
that's
joke.
gonna
No,
happen.
it's not.
It is true. Ellen sells bedding. She also sells furniture and linens and fabrics and kitchenwares. She also has her own line of apparel, which includes tees, loungewear, stuff for babies, and of course, sneakers. The stuff is not cheap either. I'm on her website right now, and you can order a cashmere blend sweater for $98. This is all under the brand ED, Ellen DeGeneres. And of course, as a big-time animal lover, she has a collection for cats and dogs. Not only this, Ellen has been a spokesperson for JCPenney, American Express, and CoverGirl. However, her work with CoverGirl has been under scrutiny as they have not always been cruelty-free. But as of November 2018, they have since stopped animal testing. However, I don't think Ellen is a CoverGirl anymore. In 2010, Ellen started her own record label, 1111. And she found people by watching their performances on YouTube. She even signed Charlie Puth after watching him cover Adele's Someone Like You. The label is now defunct and Charlie is not a part of it, but still kind of cool. There is the digital platform Ellen Tube, which streams short-form original content, and she also has Ellen Digital Ventures, which is in collaboration with Warner Brothers. So this not only brings video content, but games like the viral sensation Heads Up, that game where you put the cell phone on your forehead and your friends try and get you to guess the, like, oh, you have alligator on your forehead, and the time counts down. That's sold for 99 cents a piece, and like over 25 million people have bought that app. She also collects executive producer fees on series like Little Big Shots and Splitting Up Together. I've never heard of those shows. I've never watched them. Let me know if they're good. Let me know if I should check them out. All this to say, Ellen makes money. She is worth $275 million and is the 15th highest paid celebrity.
And then the other thing about Ellen is that when it about Ellen is that there was a time when I think it was right after we made the periodic table song / we also made the Science Love song where like everyone was tweeting like, we're gonna get you on Ellen.
Yes.
Like my parents,
and I
like
believed
my aunts,
it.
like everyone was like, we're sending us to Ellen.
Oh my
and
God,
I actually
she's fully gonna put us on.
I remember like watching Ellen and being like super jazzed. I'm like, what am I gonna say? Like going to bed and just being like picturing myself walking out, being like, I'm good at dancing. Like I'll hold the rhythm. It'll be one of those fun moments where she dances with me a little bit longer because she's like knows I get it.
I feel like you've told me this image in your mind before. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna dance. It's gonna be great. Like you,
like
I
was
it's a real thing.
Prepared. Like, and here we are in 2019. Like dreams did not come true. Do you remember when she? This is like again, we're gonna talk later about Ellen's out of touchness. But do you remember when those like two twins came out as gay on YouTube to their parents, and it kind of was like weird, and then she had them on and gave them each $10,000.
Like, I want that.
I was actually that was when I was like, I think we could get on Ellen. Like it's not that hard.
But we weren't young and cute enough, I think, honestly. Like,
but that's
older.
foiked. No,
Yeah.
she has lots of different types of people who have done random viral videos on her show. She does.
Maybe.
She really does.
Okay.
I like that part of her that she's kind of like, I'm YouTube.
quirky.
I'm normal. Yeah.
She is very YouTube. Like, she loves
remember
YouTube.
she had that Tyler Oakley show. She really does have this like weird connection to YouTube. That's what I mean. I thought we were going to be on Ellen.
And we weren't.
So the end of the story is that
I thought I was gonna be on Oprah when I was little.
What? How?
I was just like, that's my dream. I don't know why. My family watched Oprah too, and I just remember being like, that's my goal.
But like, in what way? As a
Oprah.
celeb or like as a person who like suffered like some horrible like
no, like as a
burn?
celeb. I don't know why.
Oh.
Doing what? You know when you just imagine things as a kid, and then when the show ended, I was like, oh my God, not all dreams come true. Life is not fair.
So the end of the story is,
I
Ellen, are you
literally-
listening? Oprah, are you listening? You have a podcast. I go on
True.
it.
Mhm. She has a network.
Rosie, are you listening? Sorry, I just like
Rosie's vindication is gonna be so good.
Oh my
when
God,
Trump
I am
is in jail.
so excited for Trump to be in jail. I am so excited for Trump to be in jail. It's all gonna be worth it in the end. Rosie, hang in there. We'll be back after the break to get into our debate about Ellen DeGeneres. A lot of you have been asking us how to help with this pod, and all that we can really ask from you, because we don't have a Patreon, is to just click download whenever you are listening to our podcast. Instead of just streaming it, hit the download button. Apparently that is what helps the algorithm, okay? We have honestly no idea if that's in fact true, but that's what we've been told. So we're going to tell you this now to do that. That's all we want from you, okay? Just to listen and to hit download. That's so simple. Not much we're asking from you. And, that's just a nice relationship to have. We're easy friends. We're easy friends, okay? So hit download, and we'll get back to the show. Okay, so this debate is going to be a little bit less formal in that we don't have clear sides, but we kind of want to talk this out loud with people. And this is about Kevin Hart hosting the Oscars and him, then getting denied or actually refusing to host the Oscars because he refused to apologize. Having a kerfuffle with the Academy of Motion Pictures and Arts because of things that he had said in the past. And so what Kevin Hart...
Yeah, just give the context, run down the story of what has happened.
Yeah, so he...
And how this relates to Ellen. We'll get there.
Okay. So, what was happening is that he was on Ellen, and we're going to talk about Ellen's reaction to this, which we think is a little bit weird. Okay. But he was told that he was going to host the Oscars. Everyone's so excited because obviously that's a really big deal. But then immediately after that, a lot of people started to talk about what he had said in the past about queer people, gay people, his son being gay, etc. So he called someone a fat-faced fag, which is obviously pretty intense. Even saying that word, I'm I kind of start sweating. He said that another from 2010 said a user's profile picture looked like a gay billboard for AIDS. He said, if my son comes home and tries to play with my daughter's dollhouse, I'm going to break it over his head and say in my voice, stop, that's gay. And then also he has this bit that I watched where he essentially just sees his son grinding on another guy and he panics and pushes them over, and that's the joke. And essentially it's just really in a violent way trying to make sure that his kid is not gay because being gay is bad.
And so these happened a long time ago.
A long time ago.
8 to 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, 8 to 10 years ago, which is an important part of this story. So we're going to get to why this has to do with Ellen, but I guess maybe first we should talk about that. And it's he does say that he came forward and apologized about this during a specific press junket. But what was the most important part for us was seeing him then go on the Ellen DeGeneres show on Friday and her really get behind him and talk about...
Her whole stance was this is all crazy, it's just internet trolls, and I've called the Academy to say that you should host the Oscars because I love you, because I went to dinner with you, we've talked this out, I know that you are a good person, you deserve this, and that everyone online who was asking or calling you out was a hater. And this is where I think we need to start having a conversation, because when I watched the clip of them on Ellen, was really disturbed is a bit much, disappointed. I was very disappointed in Ellen, and it really made me question she's been saying recently that she really wants her show to have more she wants to change her show to be a little bit more robust, right? Have a point of view.
Have a point of view, not just
fun.
be dancing in the audience or random games, which is all fun. And to be honest, that's what I only have expected from her, because I've always found her tone to be weird when it comes to serious things. And so to me, I was actually really upset about this, because what I think about this whole conversation and with Kevin Hart is that if you say things like that, whether it's 8 years ago, I think that you should just be prepared to be apologizing profusely for those mistakes for the rest of your life, because I don't think there's anything that wrong with apologizing. I think it's a really amazing, important aspect of all.
It's almost like he has too much self, what's it called? He's so guarded that he felt offended. On the Ellen show, she helped make him a victim.
Yeah, he's this was an attack on my moral character. It's okay, actually a lot of people who were talking about this were queer people. A lot of them were actually queer black people being he has a lot of power within the black community. Saying those things about your son resonates with people a lot more than, and even Ellen to be the one to excuse him. I was reading an article about that. It's no, he actually should have talked with someone who represented more of the community he was actually damaging than her. She kind of brushes it off. She says, oh, I'm gay, so I understand all this homophobia stuff. And then she moves on. It's like, well, do you really understand? Like, are you the person?
I think there's a couple different things that people are like conflating. One, we've kind of talked about call out culture. And so I think people always jump on this bandwagon of like, people are just pissed about everything and everyone just wants to jump up in arms. It's like, well, that might be partially true, but that doesn't mean there's no real kernel of truth to actually analyzing what's happened here and realizing what he said in the past was damaging, was problematic, and whether or not he apologized, why is it so hard
to apologize again?
And to just say, and if he's kind of claiming, and Ellen's highlighting, like, he's now not a champion for gay rights, but he has no homophobic bone in his body is what they're saying. And
that bothered me specifically.
Right.
To say that you don't, like Kevin Hart saying, I don't have a homophobic bone in my body frustrates me because I have a homophobic bone in my body. This is something I think is really important that everyone realize. We're
raised in a society that,
because I have been raised in a way where I have to constantly challenge myself. I have to constantly, when I meet a fellow gay man, understand why do I sometimes have this weird, like, intense competitive nature towards them. Like, we all have this because we were raised in a homophobic society. It continues to be homophobic to this day. So the fact that Kevin Hart is claiming he doesn't have a homophobic bone in my body bothers me.
And I think what bothers us is that Ellen, as the interviewer, can't kind of challenge these in any way whatsoever. And I think what's like the problem is, like, she doesn't need to sit there and yell at him and embarrass him and be like, you are a shitty person for this. It's more like, let's like have a real conversation about what those words mean, what it means today, 10 years later, and actually challenge you a little bit. Doesn't mean we can't
like
care
look
about
in
each
the
other
camera and
be,
apologize. Tell the people out there who have now seen these videos that and your tweets for the first time, of which there are many.
And if you're such a supporter of the LGBT community, like, what people are asking for is just some solidarity to know that you still, you've shown I can agree. And I'm sorry, I don't know much about Kevin Hart, but he was saying, like, I've spent the last 10 years proving that I'm not homophobic. I don't make those jokes anymore. And okay, that's great. But it's kind of like, we don't need to congratulate you for the baseline of not hating people. Really. I think it's like a big problem with a lot of like men who try to join the feminist movement is that first they want to be patted on the back a lot. You know what I mean? They're like, but look at me, I'm such a good man. Like, pat me on the back. And it's like, it's not about you. You're here to help, like, highlight and lift up other people and stop making it about you. Yes, you didn't say homophobic things over the last 8 years, maybe. I don't know. But, like, that doesn't mean that's what this is about. Just use this moment to lift the people up that you're saying you're not offending.
Yeah, and I think that's why, for me, thinking about Ellen, I was so disappointed because I do think this was an opportunity for her to really actually help him out. And even the way she starts it by being like, we went for dinner the other day, this is what starts to irk me a little bit about Ellen and about even celebrities in general, is I always want to continue to say this. I'm like, the amount of power that you have. With power comes great responsibility. And I think Ellen is an example of someone who wants the power. She wants to sell bed sheets, but she doesn't want to have to deal with the repercussions of her fame and her money and her access. And I think one thing that everyone in the entertainment industry, I think, needs to remember is that it is such a luxury and a privilege for you to be in that position that you should consistently be aware of your impact on the millions of people when you are existing. And I think a lot of the time they don't want to because it takes energy, and I get it. They're literally humans and they have personal lives that they feel are being affected. But it's like Ellen needs to realize that she has the voice and she has millions of people watching her, that when she decides to have people like him on and not challenge them, she's doing a lot more damage than I think she realizes, because she's actually like, this is my friend. Like, I think she forgets sometimes. It's like, you can be friends with Kevin Hart, and if you are actually like a good entertainment personality, you will know, like Oprah, how to ask these challenging questions in order for the audience and the world to be impacted positively.
Like, to grow.
Exactly. And I think that that's what frustrates me in a lot of these conversations about celebrities being so scared about being torn down. I'm like, it's about vulnerability. If I know that I have said things in my past that I am embarrassed about. And if ever, like, they came up, I would be like, I apologize profusely. And in fact, if this apology is not good enough and there are enough people who think this is wrong, maybe I should question my ability to be the famous person that I am right now. And I think that's what frustrates me, is it's like, no one has the luxury of being famous. No one really deserves that, in my opinion. Like, to be that rich famous and to be that famous. You need to be exceptional people to be in the position that Ellen and Kevin Hart are in, that I expect exceptional reactions to your horribly homophobic misdeeds in order for me to continue to think that you're doing something positive for society.
Yeah. And I guess like, well, first I also wanted to say I was looking into this and I think like Vulture and Don Lemon from CNN, is that who it is?
Yeah, Don Lemon's response is very moving.
And they were both like, you actually did not apologize. Like, I want to make this about Ellen because it's what our episode is about, but they were like, we literally looked back into the research. The words "I'm sorry" never came out.
And that's the thing is that Ellen says that he apologized for him. When you watch the interview, she says, you know, we all know you've apologized. And I'm like, no, you're glazing over the exact issue, which is that we all don't know he apologized.
Right.
If
and
he did
even
apologize
if he did,
on his
it
press
doesn't make
circuit,
it irrelevant now to just bring
do
it back
it
up
again.
and
Yeah.
just talk about why it's important to realize those mistakes and how your mistakes can help other people learn as well as yourself.
Which is why I think Ellen has done so much for, as we even said, representation. Like, she's someone
it's
who
hard because you want to like lift someone up like that. She has done an amazing thing for people like us in the entertainment industry who get to be like, look, there's queer representation. It's monetizable, which is like gross to have to think about, but it's like we're allowed to be part of this world.
But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that she can't
like, free pass.
to have a free pass in 2019 when there's a lot more things happening around these specific instances that she needs to be aware. And I think it's funny that she has a comedy special called Relatable. It's like, no, you're actually not relatable. And I know she's recently been saying she's worried that she's out of touch. And it's like, it takes a lot of effort and work to be in touch. You need to read a lot. You need to be very open and vulnerable. And it's both of those things that neither of them had in this moment. They were too busy defending their character without having to think about the repercussions and the damage that could be done. He said violent things. He was talking about violence towards gay people, right?
It's like a lot of people
apologize
gay
for
people
that
literally
forever.
deal with violence in their everyday life.
Yeah, and it's just like, if I ever said that, I would be so excited to go on Ellen, to look into the camera and be like, I am so sorry. This is so embarrassing that this is the way that I felt before. Here are the reasons why I don't feel this way. Here's like the financial things I'm going to do. Here's all the things I'm going to beg for your forgiveness. And if you can't give it to me, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and understand like, wow, that is the damage I could have done. And I just, seeing play the victim and seeing her like nod her head along
highlight that.
was
frustrating.
It made me feel so weird because I love her. I love her. I always have loved her. And I'm just like, yeah, it's a hard thing to look at someone you respect so much and just be like, how is this? It felt surreal. Like they were like CGI or something. You're like,
You're like,
real.
why is this? But it's weird. I was looking on the comments on a lot of those videos, and that's what I think, like, the conversation gets taken into this direction where it's like, oh, no one can say anything anymore,
Yeah,
and
the
he
haters.
apologized, and it's just haters. But I think everyone needs to stop and realize, like, I think that's an illusion. Like, of course there are some people who take it too far, but the people who are actually wanting to address this are doing it out of meaningfulness because it matters to them and it makes the difference. And we should be listening to the people who are, like, hurting the most. Like, Kevin Hart is not hurting the most from this. Ellen is not hurting the most from this. And so as people in positions of power who have money and aren't hurt, you should use that to look at the people who are going like, this really sucks and you did something shitty and it would mean a lot for us for you to apologize and for our queer idol to like push that apology and or just to understand like this is so much more layered is what this is actually.
Yeah, it's a very not a nuanced conversation. It's very interesting.
But it is nuanced in some ways. And
Sorry,
I think,
no, their conversation on Ellen was not nuanced.
Exactly, yeah. I think, but the issue's nuanced, and it's very easy for people to be like, oh, this is just social justice warrior bullshit. Everyone's like so PC, whatever. He can't say anything. It's like, it's really not about that. And stop hijacking that to pull away from the fact that there are legitimate criticisms of this whole circumstance.
Yeah. And that's it, honestly. Like, I do think that it was, to me, very interesting. It was very interesting.
So what do you think of Ellen now? Like, I know that's just one moment in her very long history.
Well, I mean, we are very different people. I'm full skeptical. Will not be buying her bed sheets. But
I won't either.
I really hope that she can... I really am scared that she's going to think of this, like, even this podcast, if she listened, to think that we're, like, haters. Like, I think my worry is that she's going to become, like, radicalized in that way, to think, like, all the backlash towards her is all this, like, same hate, when really what I hope is that she would listen and understand and start to, again, look in the mirror at her power, at her success, and at her voice and think, wow, okay,
I think
how am I going to use this better?
That's the challenge for us and people like us, is to now go like give her the opportunity to grow from it and not just like shit
Okay,
on
I'll buy her pillowcases, not her full
one
set.
piece at a time. But you know what I mean? Because I think that's sometimes the fear from people who make mistakes is like, even if I fix this, I can never recover from this because people are just shitty.
No, it's it's vulnerability.
But
it's
it is both. It goes
apologizing.
both ways, and I think so. For people like us being like, you need to show and grow from this. If she does, we have to then accept that and not just always look for fault in her or Kevin Hart. You know what I mean?
If they redid this interview tomorrow, listening to the
and we're
repercussions,
like, here, let's talk about the real.
And she was like,
concerns,
wow, like this maybe was a little bit like out of touch. I would feel so excited. That would make me feel so. I'd be like, 2019 is the year. Like we're gonna like grow. But I'm hoping that happens. And of course, I'm like willing to give her like the space to do that. I am. Like I still love her. It was it was disappointment. It was like literally like literal disappointment. And I am curious because sometimes I worry. Literally, I'm like, when I watch the Golden Globes, I'm like, wait a second, all these celebrities are like literally crazy. You know what I mean? Like
they are.
It's rare that you see them go up.
So much money.
Yeah, like Rami Malek when he was accepting his speech, I'm like, oh, what? You know what I mean? I'm like, at least start by and like that's a whole other thing. But like yesterday, all the straight actors getting all their accolades for playing gay people. I'm like, start your speech by being aware. Like, even you know what I mean? He didn't even say anything. Like, I don't
There's
know.
still a ways to go.
Yeah.
And ways for us to understand how we can, I guess, better communicate it or figure out if it is just like plowing the same point over and over and just being like, just stop and think about it. Just because we're criticizing you doesn't mean we're attacking you.
Well, we need to talk about like our own instances of this. Like, remember when we had sexist imagery in our periodic table song that we admitted we were like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. We are men in a sexist culture. We thought this was okay at the time. We took down that video with millions of views. We re-uploaded it. Like that was a huge mistake. I think that instance, talking about that more and more, we should do.
Yeah,
like
that's
even
true.
on like, I don't know, like go
because
whenever we're
it's
anywhere.
a moment
be like,
where you go like, I actually am so sorry. I thought this was funny at the time
because I'm literally sexist because everyone is because of the world we live in. Like I drew that picture because without thinking twice because that's what I was taught.
Right.
And I'm actually literally like, I don't know why people send, and I sometimes don't know if I'm overreacting when I say like I am homophobic, but I think that is maybe helpful for people to hear because I don't.
Well, I think what's happening in
so
society, some people think that's over the top, but I think what's happening in society is like there's a new age of thinking that's like, we get it. Like most people aren't homophobic to the point they want you to die because you're gay. Now when we say homophobic, it's way more nuanced. Now when we say racism, we're not saying people who are like, you have to go to the back of the bus. It's like, no, it's like we're talking about systemic homophobia and systemic racism and systemic sexism. Stuff that's in us that influences the way we react to everything in our lives, as opposed to actively being like, I hate women and I want them to suffer. It's like, no.
Because that does still exist at the same time. So people call that out and they confuse
and then they're
it.
like, what do you mean everyone's homophobic? It's like, well, we've been taught that like gay men acting feminine is gross and bad, and even if you
weird,
don't believe that,
it's
still part of a world you grow up in where that is permeating society, and it is less and less, but like that's our new problem. How do we now get past that? And so I don't know.
Oh, he's choking up. No. Okay. That's
anyway,
true.
Ellen,
we'll leave it at that. We're going to be talking about this for the rest of time.
Yeah, I think Ellen's not canceled to me. I don't want to say.
Right.
I mean, like some people say cancel culture.
Oh,
you know what
I was
mean?
like, no, she's not ratings
she's
through the
not
roof.
Canceled.
She's not canceled.
I'm willing to give her a chance to like redeem herself, and she has done so many amazing things for queer people in the world. And
underwear sales. She's done great things for underwear.
Really
she's done great things for dancing.
hygiene.
Honestly, I love dancing. I think she's made it more normal. She's normalized dancing.
But yeah, I still feel conflicted. And I guess that's where we'll end this episode.
And know what life is about? It's about conflict. It's about tension.
It's about walking through that door. Hashtag full circle, walking through the door that you're scared to walk through. Oh my God,
especially
it
when
truly
you're on
is.
acid. Maybe
and an apology is walking through the door you're afraid of.
And Ellen needs to do acid. Okay.
Thank you for watching. Let us know what you think about.
Listening, my friend.
What?
You said thank you for
Oh,
watching. We're
well-
not on YouTube, babe. Get your medium straight.
Well, these go up on YouTube, and hashtag we might try and start filming these soon. Do you guys want that? Hashtag Sidenote Podcast. Do you want to see us
Do you want to see
talking?
my dewy
Just
face?
see like the side of our faces talking in a
my
darkly lit
glowing
room.
face.
Honestly, tweet us. Let us know what you think about the Ellen situation, the Kevin Hart situation. Are we overreacting? Do you think we have good, solid points? And how can we like keep this conversation going in a way that's
So use
constructive?
the hashtag Sidenote Podcast. We are obsessed with reading that and seeing where you guys are at with this pod. You can talk to us directly at Mitchell Moffat, at Whale Watch Me PLZ. And we're excited for next week when we hash into a new controversial subject and get the science throughout.
Yes, we're excited for we're excited,
We're excited for 2020,
2019.
to be honest, because 2019 has not been so great.
Yeah,
2020,
it's
2020.
already a bust, but we'll endure it with you. Talk to you next time.